Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the US Futures Weekly Chart Analysis for the week ending 29th of August 2025. The first chart is the US Dollar Index Futures, which traded roughly sideways again this week. Price is just dancing around the lows of the range here. It's almost like an equilibrium has been formed. There's no catalyst for price to move lower, and the market's not strong enough to move higher. So it's just trading either side of the lows of the range here, waiting for something to happen to push market in one direction or another. At this point in time, that's exactly where we are. The market's not strong enough to move higher, and there's no reason for it to push lower. So it's just trading roughly sideways. The last 3 weeks have seen the market move higher early in the week and then only drift lower later. So we'll just see how that works itself out again over the next week or two. The next chart is the E-mini S&P. This is S&P 500 index futures, and they're moving in a similar fashion sideways. The market's pushed just slightly above this level here, the highs of the current range, but the market hasn't really pushed higher in response. Since then, it's been trading in consolidation mode for 2 weeks, waiting for perhaps some sort of catalyst to push higher. Volume was reduced and almost average this week. It was a bit of a lackluster trading week for the most part, and that's the second week in a row where we've seen lackluster trading and no great intent being shown. The market looks like it would like to go higher. There's no reason for it to move lower that's emerged so far, but there's no great intent being shown, not at this point in time anyway. Next chart is the 10-year note futures, and they continue to trade within the range of this widespread high volume down bar. Price did push above this intermediate level this week, albeit only modestly. Spread narrowed slightly, volume reduced slightly back to about average. So really it was almost that price just floated higher and didn't really get pushed higher with any great intent. So I wouldn't be hanging my hat on that being a great strong up bar at this point in time. Prices just floated higher, at least up until this point, and it would easily come back if any supply was drawn out. Next chart is copper price futures, and they continue to trade sideways, adjacent to the lows of that big widespread down bar. We did comment at the time that price was likely to trade sideways in consolidation mode for a period, and most likely around this level, the lows of this range here, where buying support came in previously, and that's pretty much what's happened. Volumes are relatively low and well below the average. So at this point in time, this market's just consolidating and showing no great intent to move higher, and there's no weakness now in the market for it to move lower, at least at this point in time. Gold price futures. Gold price futures pushed higher this week and above the important level where supply has been drawn out previously. We've seen supply here, and then whenever there was an attempt to push higher, weakness came in almost immediately and pushed price back into this zone of safety just below the highs of the range. This week, prices pushed higher again on an increase in volume, but still well below the average volume. So that's telling you that selling pressure was relatively low this week, and price has effectively floated up higher to some extent. The market closed very close to its highs for the week, which is often a sign of confidence in the market. So we'll see how the market responds again next week. The response is always important. See if we get a down bar like we have previously, or if the market's happy to break out and attempt to continue higher. This is not a breakout bar at this point in time. This is an attempt to break out. We'll just see if that attempt is successful or not, or whether weakness emerges and pushes it back into that zone of safety below. Silver price futures. Silver price futures really accelerated higher this week and closed above the $40 level for the first time for a long time. Price pushed up and above the recent high here, and the market's standing up pretty tall and proud there on good volume, about average volume. So relatively happy with that, and that suggests the market is strong and it may attempt to continue higher in response. Like crude price futures, also closed a little higher this week. The market continues to trade in that sideways range that I've mentioned previously. The mid-bar close gives you no great confidence that the market's going to continue higher with any great intent, and volume was relatively low this week. It was reduced and below the average. So that was really just a sideways bar. It was lackluster trading, and this market's pretty happy to continue trading sort of in this range in here. Into the currencies now. This is the Euro-US dollar currency pair. Price just moved sideways this week. Volume increased slightly, almost to average. You've got another level through there. That's the highs of the current range. Price is holding on at the previous highs here, trading in between the two levels. The market's been in consolidation mode for a month, showing no great intent higher, and pretty much trading the exact inverse of the US dollar. This market looks like it would like to push higher, just as the US dollar looks like it would like to push lower. But there's no catalyst and there's no intent to do so at the moment. An equilibrium's been found, and price is just happy to move sideways until something emerges to move the markets. British pound currency futures. Similar to the euro to a large extent, but often has more exaggerated movements. This market's been trading sideways for 3 weeks. Spread narrowed considerably this week. This also looks like it would like to push higher. It did so last week as well and wasn't able to. The market's trading the inverse of the US dollar to a large degree. And this market was leading the euro for quite some time. But they've come back together now and they're trading relatively similar. Japanese yen currency futures. They're also trading sideways, just above the important level here, which is the lows of this bar. The market's been happy to trade at this level previously, and it's consolidating sideways here at the moment. This looks like it would like to move higher as well, but there's no great intent being shown across all the markets. If it did so, I expect it would be limited by that level, at least for a period. You see the market move up and then perhaps bump along just underneath that level. But none of these currency markets are showing any great intent at the moment. They're bumbling along sideways in lackluster trading. Aussie dollar currency futures. They've stopped trending higher as they were previously, and here's where they were trending higher previously, and now they've moved across. They're trading roughly sideways. This market traded higher this week on below average volume, so it's just drifted up there. It's just floated up, probably on a lack of selling pressure rather than any great amount of strength. We'll see if the market's strong enough to push above this. I guess to some degree this is an important level on the chart. You can see this market does trade at this level quite consistently, so a push above that level would probably be significant and probably suggest the market will move back next week and trade back here. Bitcoin futures. Bitcoin futures pulled back this week. They gapped lower from the open and pushed lower all week. The market moved below the previous highs of the range here and back to this level, which we've seen the market use before. I was expecting the market may gather up some strength and push higher from this bar, so a gap lower wasn't quite expected. And the market has settled at a logical level. Volume reduced slightly, but was about average overall, so it was genuine trading. It probably suggests there is some supply in this market, and the market's pulling back to challenge the sellers. So we'll just see how it responds next week. You'll either get a further push lower and back down to this level, or you'll see the market reverse and push back up to where it was previously and do something like that over the week. I would expect there's a reasonable chance the market will reverse like this. It has showed strength recently. There was some selling pressure emerge up here. I thought the market had sorted that out previously. It looks like it hasn't done so at the moment. It's pulled back and is attempting to shake out that weakness. So we'll just see what the response is next week and then get back on track. And just back to the US dollar index futures quickly. You can see the market's been moving sideways more recently, dancing around the lows of the longer term trading range. There's no great intent being shown for the market to move higher, but there's no great weakness in the market for it to move lower. And so it's just bumping along in lackluster trade. You can see the volumes are reducing. They've been reducing for 5 weeks since this higher volume here, when the market made an attempt to push back up into this trading range. And since then, the market has traded within that bar's range on reducing volumes. At some point, a catalyst will emerge and the market will begin to trend in one direction or the other. At this point, there's no great telltale signs in which direction that's going to be. It's previously looked like it might move higher, and it's also looked like it might move lower, and so far neither have happened. The market bumped along sideways. It keeps on looking like it might move higher early in the week, only to drift lower on lower volume later in the week. But just be patient and wait, and when this market moves, all those other associated markets will likely move along with it. Okay, thanks for your time. Back again next week. See ya.